was a skeptical, cold-hearted tycoon, indifferent to his employees. She was his assistant, feeling utterly invisible. A misunderstanding unjustly accuses her. Patrick confronts her, but Anna fiercely defends her innocence. Shocked, he investigates and realizes his mistake. In that instant, the icy CEO realizes he'd been overlooking an extraordinary woman, and a passionate romance ignites. Get ready for a twist where a misunderstanding blossoms into love, and high society will try to tear them apart. But the power of true love will prove unbreakable. Watch this story to the end. You'll be amazed by it. If you like love stories and romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day. Continuing, Anna Carter smoothed her brown hair into the neat bun she wore every day and checked her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. It was 6:30 a.m. on a rainy Monday in New York City, and she was already on the 32nd floor of the Albright Holdings corporate building, setting up the conference room for another day that would begin before the sun fully rose. At 28 years old, Anna knew every detail of that office like the back of her hand, maybe even better, considering she spent more time there than in her small apartment in Queens. She arranged the financial reports in chronological order, adjusted the air conditioning, and checked if the coffee was at the exact temperature Mr. Albright preferred. Not that he ever showed gratitude for this attention to detail, but Anna had learned long ago that excellence was her only currency in that world. Coming from a working-class family in the Bronx, where her mother worked as a seamstress and her father as a bus driver, Anna had earned a scholarship in business administration and had gotten this far through sheer determination. Every penny of her salary was calculated, part to help her parents, part for rent, and a small amount saved religiously for a future she hoped would be different from the present. The elevator emitted a soft ding, and Anna felt her stomach clench automatically. Patrick Albright had arrived. He emerged from the elevator as he always did, with firm steps, his Italian suit impeccable, his dark hair perfectly styled, and that expression she had learned to decipher over the 2 years working as his junior assistant. It was the face of a man who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders and had no patience for frivolities. "Good morning, Mr. Albright," Anna greeted in her professional voice, rising from her desk. He didn't even slow down. "Are the reports for the meeting ready?" "Yes, sir. They're organized by priority on the conference table, and the coffee is at your preferred temperature." Patrick stopped briefly, as if finally registering her presence. His blue eyes scanned her for a second, not as a man looks at a woman, but as an executive assesses a tool. Anna felt invisible, a feeling that had become familiar and painfully constant. "Good," he muttered, disappearing into his private office. Anna sighed softly and returned to her desk. Through the glass wall, she could see him already immersed in the documents, the phone glued to his ear, coordinating operations that moved millions of dollars. Patrick Albright was a business prodigy. At 39, he had transformed the family inheritance into one of the largest investment and technology conglomerates in the country. Business magazines called him a genius, and Anna didn't doubt it. But she also saw the lonely man who worked late every night, who never smiled, who treated employees like numbers on a spreadsheet. She wondered sometimes if he even knew her full name. The phone on her desk rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Mr. Albright's office, Anna Carter speaking." "Anna? Thank God you're already there." It was Marcia from reception, and her voice sounded strained. "We have a huge problem. That confidential report on the Technosoft acquisition, you know, the one that was on Mr. Albright's desk for the 9 o'clock meeting." Anna's heart raced. "Yes, I left it there last night before I left. It's gone. And there's more. Someone leaked information about the acquisition to the press. The phone won't stop ringing, and investors are in a panic." Anna felt the floor collapse beneath her. "What do you mean it's gone?" "I'm absolutely sure that—" "Anna!" Patrick's cutting voice echoed through the office. She didn't need to look to know he was standing in the doorway of his office, and the expression on his face did not bode well. She hung up the phone and stood up slowly, her legs trembling. "Mr. Albright, my office, now." Patrick's office was a study in power and intimidation, mahogany furniture, a panoramic view of the city, and a desk that seemed larger than Anna's entire apartment. He was standing behind it, his hands resting on the polished surface, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to hide. "Explain to me," he said in a dangerously low voice, "how confidential information about $100 million acquisition ended up on the front page of the financial newspaper this morning." Mr. Albright, I don't know. The report was on your desk when I left yesterday, I'm sure." "Sure?" He leaned forward, and Anna could see the barely contained fury in his eyes. "You're sure of a lot of things, Ms. Carter. You were sure the document was safe. You were sure you followed all security protocols. And now I have a public relations crisis on my hands, and investors questioning my ability to maintain corporate confidentiality." His words hit her like slaps. Anna felt her cheeks burn with humiliation, but she forced herself to maintain her composure. "Mr. Albright, I would never do anything to harm the company. My job is my life." "Your life?" He gave a bitter laugh. "Your life is worth $50,000 a year, Ms. Carter. This leak could cost me $100 million. So tell me, is it worth risking $100 million for $50,000? The insinuation was clear and devastating. Anna felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to shed them in front of him. "Are you suggesting that I sold confidential information?" "I'm suggesting that the chain of custody of that document ends with you." At that moment, Anna felt something break inside her chest. It wasn't just the injustice of the accusation, it was the absolute coldness with which he looked at her, as if she were capable of the most vile betrayal simply because of who she was, as if her humble background automatically made her suspect. As if 2 years of impeccable dedication meant absolutely nothing. Anna took a deep breath, feeling a strange strength rising from the depths of her chest, the same strength that had sustained her during nights studying for college exams, working part-time to pay for books, and facing every challenge life had thrown her way. "Mr. Albright," she said, raising her chin and looking him directly in the eye, "in 2 years, working at this company, I've never been late a single day. I've never made a single mistake with documents. I've never failed to triple-check every report before putting it on your desk. And you've known me long enough to know that I'm incapable of such a betrayal." Patrick observed her with renewed attention, as if he were seeing her for the first time. There was something in her posture, the way she kept her shoulders straight despite the devastating accusation, the way her voice didn't tremble even with tears shining in her eyes, that sparked an uncomfortable sensation in him. "Know you?" he repeated, with a slightly less hostile tone. "Ms. Carter, I know your work. I don't know you." "Exactly," Anna replied, and for the first time in 2 years allowed a hint of emotion to seep into her professional voice. "You've never seen me as a person. I'm just a cog in your perfect machine. But that cog has never failed, Mr. Albright, and it wasn't that cog that failed now." Patrick felt a strange discomfort settling in his chest. There was something in the intensity of her gaze, in the way she pronounced each word with absolute conviction, that made his certainty about her guilt begin to waver. "If it wasn't you," he said slowly, "then how do you explain the disappearance of the document?" "I can't explain something I don't understand," Anna admitted, but her voice remained firm. "I can only guarantee that when I left this office at 10 p.m., that report was on your desk, sealed in the confidential envelope. Exactly as you always require." Patrick studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but all he saw was a raw honesty that made him uncomfortable. For 2 years, he had become accustomed to treating her as part of the furniture, efficient, silent, invisible. Now, under the pressure of the crisis, she had become vividly real, and it disturbed him in ways he couldn't comprehend. "At 10 p.m., he asked? "Why did you leave so late?" "Because you had requested the report for 7 a.m., and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect." Anna paused, and when she continued, there was a vulnerability in her voice that made something clench in Patrick's chest. "That's what I always do, Mr. Albright. I work until I'm sure I won't disappoint you." For a moment, Patrick found himself truly looking at her, not through her, not around her, but at her. He noticed for the first time how expressive her brown eyes were, how her hands trembled slightly even as she maintained her composure, how there was a natural dignity in the way she stood before his accusation. And he also noticed something more disturbing. Anna Carter was a beautiful woman, not in the obvious and artificial way of the socialites he was used to associating with, but with a natural and authentic beauty that he had managed to completely ignore until this moment. He pushed that thought away immediately. It wasn't appropriate, it wasn't professional, and it certainly wasn't the time. "My God, Patrick, what's going on here?" The female voice cut through the tension in the air like a knife. Blair Huntington walked into the office as if she owned the place, which, considering she was the daughter of one of the company's largest investors and Patrick's ex-fiancée, perhaps wasn't a completely incorrect assumption. Anna immediately took a step back, reassuming her posture as a discreet employee. Blair's presence always made her feel even more invisible. A woman who wore dresses that cost more than her annual salary, and who treated employees as if they were part of the decor. "Blair, this isn't a good time," Patrick said, but his voice had lost the intensity it had when speaking to Anna. "Of course, it's a good time. Daddy is furious about the leak, and you're here, chatting with the secretary." Blair looked at Anna with the kind of disdain that was almost an art form among the women of her social class. "Darling, you need to fire whoever is responsible for this immediately. The company's reputation is at stake." "She's an executive assistant, not a secretary," Patrick corrected automatically, surprised that he cared about the distinction. Blair laughed, a crystalline sound devoid of humor. "What difference does it make? Patrick, you can't be sentimental now. If she was the one who leaked the information, no one has established that yet," Patrick interrupted, and both Blair and Anna looked at him in surprise. "You're defending her?" Blair asked, incredulous. "Patrick, darling, you barely know her name." "Anna Carter," Patrick said without hesitation, and realized that he had always known her name. He simply had never bothered to use it. The silence that followed was heavy. Anna looked at him with a mixture of surprise and something he couldn't identify. Blair looked genuinely shocked. "Well," Blair finally said, "this is unexpected, but Patrick, you need to be practical. The press is questioning the security of the company. The investors are nervous. You can't afford to look weak or sentimental." Patrick knew she was right. Logically, firing Anna would be the safest move, a convenient scapegoat that would appease investors and end press speculation. It's what any competent CEO would do. But when he looked at Anna again, he saw something that made him hesitate. She was clearly expecting the dismissal, preparing to accept the injustice with the same dignity with which she had faced everything in life. And for the first time in a long time, Patrick heard himself making a decision based on something other than pure logic. "No," he said. "I'm going to investigate properly before taking any action." Blair looked at him as if he had lost his mind. "Patrick, the meeting with the board is in 2 hours," he continued, addressing Anna. "I want you there to answer any questions they may have about the security protocols you followed." Anna blinked, clearly not expecting this turn of events. Yes, sir. And I want a complete report of all the people who have had access to this room in the last 48 hours. Cleaning staff, security, everyone. Yes. Mr. Albright." As Anna left the room, Patrick realized that his eyes followed her until she disappeared from sight. He also noticed that Blair was watching him with an expression that did not bode well. "Patrick," she said slowly, "I hope you know what you're doing." He hoped so too. Because for the first time in a long time, Patrick Albright was making a decision that defied not only corporate logic, but also the social barriers he had erected so carefully around his life. And the boardroom was charged with tension as Anna entered, accompanying Patrick. 10 men in impeccable suits and 2 elegantly dressed women turned to observe her. and she felt the weight of their assessing gazes. She recognized some faces from business magazines, titans of industry who moved billions with a simple nod of the head. "Gentlemen, ladies," Patrick began, taking his place at the head of the table. "As you know, we face a delicate situation. Before we make any hasty decisions, I want you to hear directly from Ms. Carter about the protocols she followed." Edmund Huntington, Blair's father and one of the company's largest shareholders, leaned forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Patrick, with all due respect, we don't need a detailed interrogation. The responsibility is clear." "Responsibility is only clear when we have all the facts," Patrick retorted, and Anna noticed a firmness in his voice that surprised her. For the next 20 minutes, Anna answered each question with meticulous precision. She detailed every step she had followed, every security protocol observed, every person who knew of her presence in the office that night. Her voice remained calm and professional, even as the questions became more aggressive. Patrick watched her intently throughout the process, noticing things he had never noticed before. The way she maintained direct eye contact even under pressure. How her hands remained steady as she flipped through her impeccable notes. How there was a sharp intelligence behind each carefully structured answer. "Ms. Carter," said Helen Morrison, the only woman on the board besides the representative of the minority investors, "you mentioned that you stayed until 10 p.m. Is that common?" "Yes, ma'am. I often work late to ensure that everything is perfect for Mr. Albright's meetings. And there was no one else on the floor?" Anna hesitated for a fraction of a second. "The cleaning crew arrives at 10:30, but..." She glanced quickly at Patrick. "I saw Mr. Davies leaving the elevator when I was leaving." The silence in the room was instant and heavy. Robert Davies was the senior financial officer, a trusted man of Patrick's for over 10 years. "Robert was here at 10 p.m.? Patrick asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Yes, sir. He greeted me and said he had forgotten some documents in his office." Patrick felt something icy settling in his stomach. Robert had lied to him that morning, saying he hadn't been in the office since Friday. After the meeting, which ended with the decision to suspend any action until a complete investigation was conducted, Patrick found himself alone with Anna in his office. The rest of the floor was empty. He had dismissed the staff to prevent further leaks. "You saved your own skin in there," Patrick said, loosening his tie. "And possibly mine too," Anna observed him carefully. There was something different about him, a vulnerability she had never seen before. "Mr. Albright, Mr. Davies, you've worked together for a long time. 10 years. Patrick walked to the window, contemplating the illuminated city below. "He was with me when I rebuilt this company after I almost lost it." Anna sensed that there was a larger story there, but she didn't dare ask. Instead, she remained silent, allowing him to continue if he wanted. "My father died when I was 28, Patrick said suddenly, still looking out the window. "He left the company to me, but he also left enormous debts that I didn't know about. I found out he'd made terrible investments, trusting people who betrayed him when things got tough." Anna approached a few steps instinctively. "That must have been devastating." It was. Patrick turned to face her, and she saw an old pain in his eyes. "I lost everything in 6 months. The company, the family home, almost all my friends. The people I thought loved me disappeared overnight when the money ran out. But you rebuilt everything." "Yes, but I learned a lesson I never forgot. Trust is a luxury that men in my position can't afford to have." He paused, studying her face. "That's why I treated you the way I did this morning. It's why I treat everyone like cogs in the machine." Anna felt her heart clench. For the first time, she saw the man behind the relentless corporate facade, someone who had been betrayed so deeply that he had built walls to protect himself from any possibility of pain again. "Robert was there when I rebuilt everything," Patrick continued. "Worked without pay for months when I could barely pay the basic bills. I thought he was different. Maybe he still is," Anna said softly. "Maybe there's an explanation." Patrick looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "You're still trying to give me hope even after how I treated you today?" "It's not me who needs to have hope, Mr. Albright. It's you." Anna took another step toward him, feeling a strange courage. You've built this company from scratch twice. That requires more than intelligence. It requires heart. For a moment they stood there, only a few feet apart, and Patrick found himself really seeing Anna Carter for the first time. Not the efficient assistant, not the suspected employee, but the woman, strong, compassionate, genuine, who had remained by his side even when he had treated her with suspicion and coldness. Why do you do it? He asked suddenly. Why do you work so late? Why do you care so much about perfection? Anna lowered her eyes, hesitating. When she finally answered, her voice was softer. Because I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to depend on the charity of others. She looked up at him again. My family lost our home when I was 16. My father was laid off, my mother got sick. We had to live with my grandmother for 2 years. Patrick felt something clench in his chest. I learned that the only thing no one can take away from you is your hard work and your integrity, Anna continued. That's why I never give less than my best. That's why this job means everything to me. They looked at each other in silence, each recognizing something familiar in the other's pain. Two people who had learned about loss too young, who had built their lives on the need to never be vulnerable again. Patrick's phone rang, breaking the moment. It was security. Robert Davies had arrived and was asking to speak with him. Send him up, Patrick said, then looked at Anna. You don't have to stay for this. I'd like to stay, she replied, if you don't mind. After everything that's happened today, I'd like to know the truth. Patrick nodded slowly. For the first time in years, he wouldn't face a potential betrayal alone. And strangely, Anna's presence beside him made him feel stronger, not weaker. Robert Davies walked into the office with the same confidence as always, but Patrick immediately noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way he avoided direct eye contact. 10 years of partnership had taught Patrick to read the nuances of his CFO's behavior. Patrick, we need to talk, Robert said, finally noticing Anna's presence. Maybe it's best if we do this in private. Miss Carter stays, Patrick replied firmly. She deserves to hear the truth, considering she was unfairly accused this morning. Robert ran a hand through his graying hair, a gesture Patrick recognized as a sign of extreme anxiety. Patrick, you don't understand the situation. Then explain to me why you lied about being here last night. The silence stretched for long seconds. Anna remained motionless near the window, feeling like an intruder in something deeply personal, but unable to leave after Patrick had insisted on her presence. I was being blackmailed, Robert finally admitted, the words coming out as a heavy sigh. Patrick felt the ground move beneath his feet. Blackmailed? By whom? Edmund Huntington. The name hit Patrick like a punch to the gut. Blair's father. One of the company's largest investors, a man he considered almost a mentor. That's impossible, Patrick murmured. But even as he spoke, pieces began to fall into place in his mind. Robert approached the desk, his hands trembling slightly. Patrick, you remember that disastrous investment I made 3 years ago? That biotech company that went bust? Patrick nodded. Robert had lost a significant amount of his own money in that deal. It wasn't a mistake, Robert continued, his voice heavy with shame. It was manipulation. Edmund gave me false information, convinced me to invest knowing the company was about to collapse. He made millions selling his shares before the crash. Anna felt her stomach clench. She watched Patrick, seeing the betrayal slowly settling on his features. He told me that if I didn't cooperate, he would destroy me, Robert continued. That he would reveal other information that could incriminate me in insider trading schemes. Information that he himself had orchestrated, but that would make me look guilty. And the document yesterday? Patrick asked, his voice dangerously low. He forced me to take it. Said that if I didn't, he would make sure I ended up in prison. Robert looked directly at Anna. I knew you would be blamed. I tried to just take a copy, leave the original, but you ended up taking everything, Patrick concluded. Robert nodded miserably. Patrick, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do this, but I have a family, Get out! The word came out as a low growl, filled with a fury that made Anna take an instinctive step toward Patrick. "Patrick, please, get out!" Patrick exploded, his composure finally shattering. "Get out before I do something we'll both regret." Robert quickly retreated and left the room, closing the door behind him. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by Patrick's heavy breathing. Anna watched him, seeing a man who had built his entire life on control disintegrating before her eyes. Without consciously thinking, she approached him. "Mr. Albright?" 10 years, Patrick said, his voice hoarse. 10 years I trusted him. And Edmund, he laughed bitterly. Edmund has been at my dinner table, has been giving me business advice, and all the time. His voice broke, and Anna saw something she never thought she would see, Patrick Albright completely vulnerable. "I'm an idiot," he murmured, running his hands over his face. "A complete idiot. How could I be so blind?" "You're not an idiot," Anna said softly, moving closer. "You were betrayed by people who were supposed to protect you." Patrick looked at her, and there was something devastatingly lost in his eyes. "How can you defend me after how I treated you today?" "I accused you. I humiliated you. Because I know you're a good man," Anna replied, her voice firm despite the tremor she felt inside. "I've seen how you treat your employees when you think no one is watching. I've seen how you worry about the details that ensure everyone has a stable job. You're not cold, Mr. Albright, you're cautious. And you have reason to be." For a moment they stood there, too close to be appropriate, too far apart for what they were both feeling. Patrick looked at her as if she were the only real thing in a world that had revealed itself to be a lie. "Anna," he said, his voice just a whisper, and it was the first time he had used her first name. The way he pronounced her name sent a shiver down her spine. There was something intimate in that whisper, something that changed everything between them irreversibly. "Mr. Patrick," she began, but he shook his head. "No, just Patrick, please." They looked at each other, and Anna felt the air between them charging with a tension that had nothing to do with the corporate crisis they faced. It was something more primal, more dangerous. Patrick raised his hand hesitantly and gently touched her face. Anna should have pulled away. She knew she should. But instead, she leaned slightly into the touch. "You're the only real person in my life," Patrick murmured, his eyes fixed on hers. "The only one who doesn't want anything from me other than to do your job well." "Patrick." Anna whispered his name, and the intimacy of hearing it from her lips almost undid him completely. They were getting closer, drawn together by a force that neither could resist, when the office door opened abruptly. Blair walked in like a hurricane, stopping short when she saw the scene before her, Patrick and Anna too close, his hand still touching her face, the intimacy palpable in the air between them. "What the hell is going on here?" Blair asked, her voice cutting like ice. Anna stepped back quickly, heat rising in her cheeks. Patrick dropped his hand, but he didn't retreat. "Blair, you should have knocked," he said, his voice regaining some firmness. "Knocked?" Blair laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Patrick, what do you think you're doing? With her?" The way she said "her" made Anna flinch, reminding her brutally of the reality of her situation. She was an employee. He was the CEO, and Blair represented the world to which Patrick belonged, a world where Anna would never be welcome. "That's none of your business, Blair," Patrick said, but Anna could see the internal struggle in his eyes. "Not my business?" Blair approached, her heels clicking menacingly on the marble floor. "Patrick, have you forgotten who I am? Who my father is? Do you really think you can get involved with the help? And there won't be consequences?" Blair's words hit Anna like physical slaps. The help. That's how she was seen by people like Blair. "Maybe I should go," Anna murmured, heading for the door. "No," Patrick said firmly, gently holding her arm. "You're not going anywhere." Blair watched the interaction with calculating eyes, and Anna saw the exact moment she decided this had become a war. "Very well, Patrick," Blair said, her voice suddenly calm and dangerous. "If that's how you want to play it, then let's play. But remember, my father controls 40% of the shares in this company. And he's not going to be happy to learn that you're getting involved with employees suspected of leaking information. The threat hung in the air like poison. Anna felt the blood drain from her face as she understood the implications. Patrick realized it too. She could see it in his eyes. Blair, no need to say anything more, darling, Blair interrupted, heading for the door. Just think carefully about your next decisions, because now they affect much more than just you. When she left, Anna and Patrick were alone again, but the magic of the moment had been completely shattered, replaced by a cold and threatening reality. Anna, Patrick began, but she was already shaking her head. She's right, Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. We can't. This will destroy everything you've built. But even as she spoke the words, Anna knew it was too late. Something had changed between them irreversibly, and the consequences of that change were only just beginning to manifest. In the 3 days following the confrontation with Blair, Patrick and Anna developed a careful dance of closeness and distance. During business hours, they maintained a facade of impeccable professionalism. He was the CEO, she was the executive assistant. But when the office emptied, when they were alone reviewing reports or preparing presentations, the tension between them became almost tangible. Patrick found himself inventing excuses to work late. Anna voluntarily stayed after hours, even when there was no real need. They shared glances that lasted a second longer than appropriate, conversations that delved deeper than strictly professional, moments of silence laden with unspoken meaning. The report for tomorrow's meeting is ready, Anna said on Thursday evening, placing the documents on Patrick's desk. It was almost 9 o'clock, and the entire floor was empty. Thank you, Patrick replied, but instead of taking the papers, his fingers brushed against hers. The touch was brief, but it sent an electric current through both of them. Patrick, Anna whispered, and there was a world of conflict in her voice. I know, he replied, understanding perfectly. I know we shouldn't. I know it's complicated. I know it could destroy everything. He paused, looking deeply into her eyes. But I can't stop thinking about you. Anna closed her eyes, fighting against the turmoil of emotions in her chest. Patrick, if anyone finds out, no one will find out, he said, moving closer. We'll be careful. But even as he spoke the words, they both knew they were lying to themselves. In a world where Patrick's every move was watched, where his personal life was fodder for trade magazines and high society chatter, there was no way to keep secrets for long. The proof of that arrived on Friday morning in the form of a phone call that made Patrick's blood run cold. Mr. Albright, the voice of the head of corporate security was strained. We need to meet immediately. We have a problem. An hour later, Patrick was looking at photographs that made his stomach churn. Images of him and Anna in the office, taken through the glass wall by a powerful telephoto lens. One photo of him touching her face, another of the two of them too close while reviewing documents. A third that captured an intimate moment of conversation that anyone could interpret as romantic. Where did you get these? Patrick asked, his voice controlled despite the fury he felt. They arrived by anonymous email this morning, replied Marcus Santos, head of security. Along with a message, Patrick read the email with growing horror. Dear Mr. Albright, I imagine your reputation and the stability of your company are important to you. It would be a shame if these images were to reach the press, especially considering the recent questions about information leaks and the inappropriate closeness between the CEO and a suspected employee. I await your contact to discuss how we can resolve this situation in a mutually beneficial way. A concerned friend. Have you traced the email? Patrick asked, although he already knew what the answer would be. Burner account, VPN, impossible to trace. Whoever did this is a professional. Patrick knew exactly who had orchestrated this, but proving it would be another matter entirely. When Anna arrived at work that morning, she found Patrick waiting for her in his office, the door closed. He was pale, tense, and she immediately knew something was terribly wrong. What happened? She asked, closing the door behind her. Patrick showed her the photographs without saying a word. Anna felt her legs buckle. She grabbed a chair for support, staring at the images that captured every intimate moment they had shared in recent days. "Oh my God," she whispered.
How?
"Someone was watching us. Someone who wants to destroy me." "Edmund," Anna said immediately. "Probably. But I can't prove it." Patrick approached her, his hands instinctively reaching for hers. "Anna, I'm so sorry. I promised no one would find out and—" "No," she interrupted, pulling her hands away. "No, Patrick, you don't understand what this means for me." The pain in her voice hit him like a punch to the gut. "Anna, you're Patrick Albright. You're rich, powerful, untouchable. If these photos leak, you'll be seen as a man who had an affair with an employee. Maybe your reputation will be tarnished for a few weeks, but you'll survive." Tears began to glisten in her eyes. "But me, I'll be the gold digger who tried to seduce the boss. I'll be the woman who used her body to get ahead. I'll never get a job anywhere again." Patrick felt his heart shatter as he saw the brutal reality of the situation through her eyes. Anna was right. The world would judge them both in completely different ways. "I won't let that happen," he said firmly. "How will you stop it? Paying off the blackmailer? And then the next one? And the one after that?" Anna shook her head, wiping away the tears with her fist. "Patrick, this has to stop, now, before it's too late." "Anna, don't what?" "Don't be sensible. Don't protect my reputation." She stood up, putting physical distance between them. "Patrick, I can't be your forbidden fantasy. I can't be the woman you kiss in secret while dating the daughter of the company's biggest investor. I'm not dating Blair, but everyone thinks you are. Society, the press, probably even Edmund." Anna ran her hands through her hair, undoing her always perfect bun. "And even if you weren't, even if we were public about this, you know how it would be seen. The tycoon and his employee, the modern-day Cinderella who won the prince. And what's wrong with that?" Anna looked at him with a mixture of love and despair that devastated him. "The problem is I'm not Cinderella, Patrick. I'm a woman who has worked her whole life to be respected for what she does, not for who she sleeps with. And I'm not throwing that away for anyone." At that moment, Patrick's phone rang. It was Blair, her voice sweetly poisonous, delivering a message that made his blood freeze. "Darling, you need to see Sunday's edition of Town and Country magazine. It seems someone has made some interesting revelations about your personal life. Daddy is concerned. Perhaps we should talk about how to manage this delicate situation." When Patrick hung up, Anna was looking at him with an expression of total defeat. "It's Sunday," she said quietly. "They're going to publish it on Sunday." 2 days, Patrick murmured. "We have 2 days to figure a way out." Anna shook her head slowly. "No, Patrick, you have 2 days. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I have to protect what little I have left." "Anna, wait." But she was already gone, leaving Patrick alone with the photographs that threatened to destroy not only his company, but the only thing that had become truly important to him. The woman who had fallen in love with who he really was, not what he possessed. Meanwhile, downstairs, Anna left the building certain that her life was about to change forever. She didn't yet know that Edmund Huntington was already setting in motion a plan that would not only destroy her reputation, but also threaten everything she had built over the years. Anna's phone rang as soon as she got home. It was an unknown number. "Miss Carter, this is Julian Fremont from Town and Country magazine. I'd like to give you an opportunity to comment on your relationship with Patrick Albright before we publish our story on Sunday. It would be in your best interest to talk to us." Anna hung up the phone with trembling hands, knowing that the net was closing more quickly than she had imagined. Sunday dawned gray in New York City, but nothing compared to the darkness that engulfed Anna's life when she saw the front page of Town and Country magazine at the newsstand near her apartment. Albright Holdings scandal, CEO and employee in forbidden romance. The headline occupied half the page, accompanied by the most compromising photo. Patrick touching her face with undeniable intimacy. Anna felt the ground disappear beneath her feet as she read the subtitle, executive accused of leaking confidential information, reportedly using charms to manipulate Tycoon. Sources reveal, with trembling hands, she bought the magazine and ran back home. The story was even worse than she had imagined. 4 full pages detailing her secret relationship with Patrick, with quotes from anonymous sources that painted Anna as a calculating opportunist who had seduced the CEO to escape the leak accusations. Sources close to the company reveal that Anna Carter, 28, from a working-class family in the Bronx, used her position as an assistant to get close to CEO Patrick Albright, 39, the richest man in New York according to Forbes. The romance reportedly began precisely when Carter was being investigated for leaking confidential information about a multi-million-dollar acquisition. She was always too ambitious for her position, reveals a source who works at the company. She stayed late on purpose, always finding excuses to be near him. Now we know why. Anna vomited. She literally ran to the bathroom and vomited, her body rejecting the reality of what was happening to her life. Everything she had worked for, her entire reputation, all her dignity, destroyed in a few lines of skillfully constructed lies. The phone started ringing incessantly. Journalists, acquaintances, even curious neighbors. Anna unplugged the phone, but that didn't stop her cell phone from vibrating constantly inside the drawer where she had hidden it. It was 10 in the morning when someone knocked on her door. Anna looked through the peephole and saw Patrick, his hair disheveled, his expression devastated. She opened the door only a crack. "Anna, please let me in. We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she replied, her voice hoarse from crying. "Please, 5 minutes." Against her better judgment, Anna opened the door. Patrick entered and immediately saw the magazine open on the coffee table, the pages highlighting the lies about her. "This is all lies," he said immediately. "I'm going to sue this magazine. Going to what?" Anna turned to him, her eyes red but her voice firm. "Going to prove that I'm not a gold digger? Going to explain to the whole world that Patrick Albright genuinely fell in love with his humble assistant?" "Yes, exactly that." Anna laughed bitterly. "And you think anyone will believe it? Patrick, you live in a different world than I do. To the people in your social circle, I'll always be the employee who seduced the boss." Patrick approached her, trying to touch her, but Anna recoiled. "Anna, I don't care what people think. I love you." The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time he had said it clearly, and for a moment Anna felt her heart race. But the reality of the situation quickly imposed itself. "You love me?" she asked quietly. "Then why didn't you call me yesterday? Why didn't you come to see me as soon as you heard about the article?" Patrick hesitated, and that hesitation was like a dagger in Anna's heart. I had to deal with the board of directors. Edmund called an emergency meeting and you chose your company. That's not it. I was trying to protect you, trying to find a way to..." Patrick's phone rang, interrupting him. It was Blair, and he automatically answered it. "Patrick, where are you?" "Daddy wants to talk to you immediately. The situation is getting out of control, and you need to make a decision now." Anna heard every word through the phone. She saw Patrick run a hand through his hair, saw the conflict in his eyes. I'm on my way," he said. When he hung up, Anna was looking at him with an expression he would never forget, a mixture of love, disappointment, and final farewell. "Go," she said simply. "Anna, it's not what you're thinking. Go, Patrick. Your world is calling. I'll be back. As soon as I sort this out with the board, I'll be back and we'll talk properly." Anna nodded, but they both knew it was a lie. As Patrick left, Anna locked the door and leaned against it, allowing the tears to finally fall freely. What she didn't know was that Patrick didn't go straight to the company. He spent 2 hours driving aimlessly through the city, wrestling with the most difficult decision of his life. When he finally arrived at the office, it was almost noon. The board of directors was meeting in an extraordinary session. Edmund Huntington was in charge of the situation, and Patrick realized immediately that an ambush had been orchestrated. "Patrick," Edmund began as soon as he entered, "we need to talk about this embarrassing situation." "There's nothing embarrassing about my feelings for Anna Carter," Patrick replied, trying to sound more firm than he felt. Your feelings? Helen Morrison from the board raised her eyebrows. Patrick, you're talking about an employee who was accused of leaking confidential information, an accusation that was proven false. But that raised questions about your judgment, Edmund added smoothly. Patrick, you're the CEO of this company. Your actions affect thousands of employees and billions in investments. For an hour, the board presented an ultimatum disguised as paternal concern. The article had shaken the confidence of international investors. 3 major clients had already cancelled meetings. The company's stock had fallen 15% at the opening of trading. The solution is simple, Edmund finally said. Fire the employee. Make a public statement distancing yourself from the scandal. Marry Blair. That would reassure investors and show stability. Marry Blair? Patrick stood up abruptly. Edmund, I don't love your daughter. Love is a luxury that men in our position can't afford to have, Edmund replied coldly. You learned that lesson once. It seems you need to learn it again. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Patrick left that meeting completely shattered. He had managed to avoid firing Anna, but only by promising that he would end any personal relationship with her. Marriage to Blair remained a strong suggestion for the near future. When he arrived at Anna's apartment, she was loading suitcases into her car. Where are you going? He asked, the panic evident in his voice. Leaving, Anna replied without looking at him. I received a job offer in Seattle, a small but honest company. I start on Monday. Anna, no. Don't run away. We can get through this. She finally turned to face him. Get through? Patrick, do you know what happened today? My mother called me crying because the neighbors are talking. I lost 3 job interviews I had scheduled for this week. The company's cancelled after seeing the article. And you know what's worse? Patrick shook his head, fearing the answer. An hour ago, I received a call from Town & Country magazine. They have more photos. Photos of you leaving my building this morning. The headline in the next edition is going to be Tycoon Defies Scandal and Continues Forbidden Romance. Anna wiped away a tear that insisted on falling. They're going to completely destroy me, Patrick. And you too. I don't care, but I do, she shouted, finally losing her composure. I care about my dignity. I care about my family. And I care about you enough not to let you use me to destroy everything you've built. Patrick felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Use you? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Patrick stepped away from her, the hurt evident in his eyes. You think I'm using you? Like everyone else always has. Anna realized the terrible mistake she had made, but it was too late. The pain on Patrick's face was devastating. Patrick, no. No, it's okay, he said, his voice returning to the cold, distant tone she knew so well. You're right. This was a mistake from the beginning. People like me and people like you. We live in different worlds. Patrick, please. But he was already leaving. At the door, he turned one last time. Good luck in Seattle, Miss Carter. The formal use of her name was the final stab. Anna collapsed on the floor of her empty apartment, knowing that she had lost not only the man she loved, but also the last vestige of hope that love could overcome the barriers that the world had built between them. That night, Patrick signed Anna Carter's dismissal papers from Albright Holdings and authorized a statement to the press stating that the relationship had been inappropriate and was terminated. Edmund smiled with satisfaction when he read the statement, knowing that he had won. But neither of them knew that Anna had secretly recorded a phone conversation with Robert Davies the previous week, a conversation that would change everything if she had the courage to use it. Anna spent the first 3 days in Seattle trying to convince herself that she had made the right choice. The company that had hired her was small but solid. Her colleagues were welcoming, and no one there knew about her past with Patrick Albright. She could start over, build a new life away from the scandal that had destroyed everything. But at night, alone in the small apartment she had rented near the beach, Anna couldn't stop thinking about the injustice of it all. She couldn't accept that Edmund Huntington had won so easily, manipulating not only Robert, but the entire situation for his own purposes. And above all, She couldn't forget the pain in Patrick's eyes when she had suggested he was using her. It was on Thursday night that Anna made a decision that would change everything. She called Robert Davies. "Anna?" His voice sounded surprised and cautious. "I heard you left town." "I did, but I need to talk to you, Robert. About Edmund. About everything he's done." There was a long pause. "Anna, I can't. It's dangerous. More dangerous than letting him destroy innocent people." Anna took a deep breath. "Robert, I recorded our conversation last week, when you called me to apologize for letting me take the blame for the leak." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "You recorded it?" he finally asked. "Every word, including when you said that Edmund has been blackmailing other executives too, that there's a much larger scheme involving insider trading and market manipulation." Robert sighed heavily. "Anna, you don't understand who you're messing with. Edmund has connections everywhere. He can destroy your life." "My life has already been destroyed," Anna replied with a firmness that surprised her. "But I'm not going to let him keep doing this to other people. And I'm not going to let Patrick keep suffering the consequences of something he didn't do." On Friday, Anna was back in New York City. She hadn't told anyone of her return. Not even her family knew that she had left her job in Seattle after just a week to come back and fight. Her first stop was the office of Helen Morrison, the only woman on the board of directors of Albright Holdings who had demonstrated any sense during the recent crises. "Ms. Carter," Helen said when Anna appeared in her office at the consulting firm where she worked. "This is an interesting surprise. Ms. Morrison, I need to talk to you about Edmund Huntington and what really happened with the information leak." Helen studied Anna carefully. "Sit down. Coffee?" Over the next hour, Anna told her everything. She showed her the recordings, shared the evidence she had collected about Edmund's scheme, and revealed details about how he had manipulated not only Robert, but the entire situation to get rid of Patrick and assume greater control of the company. "Edmund wants Patrick out," Anna concluded. "The romance with me was just a convenient excuse. But he has other plans. He wants total control of Albright Holdings." Helen leaned back in her chair, processing the information. "You have solid evidence, but Edmund is powerful. He has allies on the board, in the media, but you're not one of his allies," Anna said, watching Helen carefully. "I saw how you looked at him during the meetings. You've suspected him for a while." Helen smiled for the first time. "You're more observant than I thought." She leaned forward. "Anna, what you're proposing is a war. Edmund won't back down easily." "Then let it be war," Anna replied without hesitation. "But this time he won't just be fighting me. He'll be facing the truth." Meanwhile, Patrick was living the worst period of his life. The company was running, business continued, but he felt like a ghost walking through the halls that he had once dominated with confidence. Edmund had assumed an increasingly large presence in daily operations, and Patrick realized he was gradually losing control. Blair appeared constantly, bringing dinners, organizing social gatherings, behaving as if they were officially together. The press had begun to speculate about an imminent engagement, and Patrick had no energy to deny the rumors. But it was on Friday afternoon that Patrick received a call that shook him out of his lethargy. "Mr. Albright?" It was Marcus from security. "I need to talk to you." "It's about the photographs. We've discovered who took them." An hour later, Patrick was looking at evidence that confirmed his worst suspicions. The photos had been taken by a private investigator hired by Edmund, the same investigator who had planted listening devices in the office and who was collecting information on various company executives. "There's more, sir," Marcus continued. "We found evidence that Huntington has compromising files on at least 6 other executives at major companies. He's building an empire based on blackmail and manipulation." Patrick felt a cold rage settling in his chest. Edmund had not only destroyed his relationship with Anna, he had orchestrated everything as part of a much larger plan. "Sir," Marcus hesitated, "there's something else. Anna Carter is back in town. She's been meeting with people, collecting information. It seems she's planning something." Patrick felt his heart race for the first time in weeks.
Anna's back?
Yes, sir. And from what we've been able to find out, she hasn't returned to accept defeat. That night, Patrick couldn't sleep. He paced through his empty apartment, thinking about Anna, thinking about how he had allowed Edmund to manipulate everything, thinking about how he had failed the only woman who really mattered to him. On Saturday morning, he received an unexpected call from Helen Morrison. "Patrick, we need to meet. There are some things you need to know about Edmund and about Anna Carter." "Helen, what's going on?" "Let's just say that you severely underestimated the woman you decided to let go." Meanwhile, Anna was putting in motion the final phase of her plan. She had managed to gather more evidence than she had imagined possible. Recordings, documents, testimonies from other executives whom Edmund had blackmailed over the years. But she knew that evidence wouldn't be enough. Edmund was too powerful, had too many connections. She needed something more. She needed a public stage where he couldn't escape or manipulate the situation. And then Anna knew exactly what to do. The annual business gala would be on Monday night. All the top executives in the city would be there, including Patrick and Edmund. The trade press would cover the event extensively. It would be the perfect stage to expose the truth. Anna spent Sunday making the final preparations. She knew she was risking everything: her safety, her reputation, her future. But for the first time since it all began, she felt truly empowered. On Sunday night, she made two important calls. The first was to Robert Davies. "Robert, it's time for you to do the right thing. Tomorrow night at the gala, you'll have a chance to redeem yourself." The second call was to Patrick. When he answered, she almost lost her nerve. "Anna?" His voice was heavy with emotion. "Where are you?" "Helen told me you were back, but—" "Patrick," she interrupted, her voice firm despite her racing heart. "Tomorrow night at the gala, the truth about Edmund will be revealed. Everything he's done, the whole scheme, the whole manipulation. Anna, that's dangerous. Edmund I know exactly who he is. And you know too," Anna paused. "Patrick, I'm going to do this with or without you. But I'd prefer to have you by my side when the truth finally comes out." Before he could answer, she hung up. Patrick stood there with the phone in his hand, knowing that the moment of truth had arrived. He could continue living in the lie that Edmund had built, or he could fight for the woman he loved and for the truth they both deserved. On Monday night, as New York's elite prepared for the most prestigious gala of the year, three people prepared for a battle that would change everything. Anna, determined to expose the truth. Patrick, finally ready to fight for what really mattered. And Edmund, who had no idea that his empire of lies was about to collapse. The stage was set. The truth was ready to be revealed. The annual business gala was in full swing when Anna entered the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. She had carefully chosen her dress, an elegant but understated navy blue gown that conveyed dignity without trying to compete with the opulence around her. Every gaze that turned to her carried curiosity, judgment, and malicious whispers. Patrick saw her as soon as she entered. He was talking to international investors when his gaze was magnetically drawn to the entrance. Anna was radiant, not with the artificial beauty that dominated that environment, but with an inner strength that made her shine brighter than all the expensive jewels around her. "Patrick, darling, are you listening to me?" Blair appeared beside him, following his gaze. When she saw Anna, her eyes narrowed dangerously. "What is she doing here?" Across the ballroom, Edmund Huntington had noticed Anna's presence and was frowning with growing concern. He approached one of the event's private security guards. "I want you to keep a close eye on that woman," he murmured. "If she tries to cause any trouble, remove her immediately." But Anna wasn't alone. Helen Morrison appeared at her side, as did Robert Davies, who looked nervous but determined. "It's time," Helen said quietly. The first part of Anna's plan began when Helen took the stage to give the opening speech of the gala. As a member of the organizing committee, she had the privilege of addressing the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," Helen began, her clear and powerful voice echoing through the ballroom, "tonight we celebrate business. But we must also celebrate the integrity that sustains it. Edmund began to feel uncomfortable, unsure why. Therefore, Helen continued, I would like to invite to the stage a young woman who exemplifies the courage to defend the truth, even when it costs dearly personally. Anna Carter. The silence that followed was deafening. Anna walked through the ballroom with her head held high, ignoring the shocked looks and growing whispers. Patrick took an instinctive step toward her, but Blair held his arm firmly. When Anna reached the stage, Edmund was pale. He began to move toward the exit, but found that the paths were discreetly blocked by security guards, not his, but Helen's. Good evening, Anna began, her voice steady despite her nerves. My name is Anna Carter, and for 2 years I worked as an executive assistant at Albright Holdings. Recently, I was unfairly accused of leaking confidential information. Tonight, I am here to tell you who was really responsible. The ballroom was completely silent now. Patrick had freed himself from Blair and was approaching the stage. Robert Davies, Chief Financial Officer of Albright Holdings, was blackmailed by Edmund Huntington to steal those documents. Anna continued, her voice gaining strength. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Anna nodded to Robert, who walked onto the stage with hesitant steps. On the screens scattered throughout the ballroom, documents, audio recordings, and photographs began to appear detailing Edmund's scheme. For years, Robert said into the microphone, his voice trembling but clear, Edmund Huntington has operated a blackmail scheme involving dozens of executives. He collects compromising information, forces leaks of insider information, and manipulates markets for his own benefit. The ballroom exploded in shocked murmurs. Journalists began taking photos frantically. Edmund tried to leave, but found that he was surrounded. This is a hoax! Edmund shouted from the back of the ballroom. Are you going to believe a vengeful woman and a disgruntled employee? It was at that moment that Patrick took the stage. The ballroom silenced again as Patrick approached the microphone. He looked directly at Anna, and she saw in his eyes everything she needed to see. Love, pride, determination. My name is Patrick Albright, he said, his voice echoing with authority through the room. And I am here to confirm every word that Anna Carter has just spoken. Blair let out a shriek of indignation from the middle of the crowd. More than that, Patrick continued, his eyes still fixed on Anna, I am here to say that Anna Carter is the most honest, courageous, and honorable woman I have ever known, and that I am deeply grateful that she had the courage to expose the truth, even when it meant risking everything. He turned to face the crowd, his voice gaining even more strength. For years, I have allowed social prejudices to blind me to the real value of people. I have allowed men like Edmund Huntington to manipulate not only my company, but my personal life. Today that ends. Edmund tried one last gambit. Patrick, you're making a terrible mistake. This woman is using you. Patrick stepped off the stage and walked directly to where Edmund was standing. The entire ballroom watched them in absolute silence. Edmund, Patrick said, his voice low but audible to everyone, you manipulated my CFO, invaded my privacy, blackmailed dozens of executives, and tried to destroy the woman I love. If anyone here is being used, it's not me. He turned back to the stage, where Anna was standing, tears shining in her eyes. Anna Carter, Patrick said, climbing the steps again, I treated you unfairly. I allowed the fear of being betrayed again to blind me to who you really are. I allowed others to dictate who I should love and how I should live my life. He grabbed the microphone and addressed the entire room. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the woman who taught me that true courage isn't never being afraid. It's doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Anna Carter is not my employee. She's not my subordinate. She's my equal in every aspect that truly matters. Patrick knelt right there, on the stage, before hundreds of people, and pulled a ring from his pocket, not a ring he had bought to impress, but his grandmother's ring, simple and meaningful. Anna, you love me enough to fight for the truth, even when it meant losing everything. Now let me prove that I love you enough to give up everything for our future together. Will you marry me?" The ballroom was in absolute silence. Anna looked at Patrick kneeling before her, offering not only a ring, but a public and irreversible choice to stand by her against the entire world. "Patrick," she whispered, then spoke louder so that everyone could hear, "Are you sure? Because after tonight, there's no going back. You'll be choosing a life where love matters more than social approval." "That's exactly the life I want," Patrick replied without hesitation. "Then yes," Anna said, extending her hand to him. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ballroom exploded in applause, not everyone, but enough. As Patrick placed the ring on Anna's finger and kissed her right there on the stage, flashes went off, and the story of their night spread across social media in real time. From the back of the ballroom, Edmund Huntington was being discreetly escorted out by federal agents who had arrived armed with warrants based on the evidence that Anna had provided to the authorities. 6 months later, Patrick and Anna were married in a simple ceremony at her parents' house in the Bronx. The guest list included employees of Albright Holdings, Anna's working-class family, and some of New York's most powerful executives, those who had learned to respect both her courage and his integrity. Edmund Huntington had been arrested for fraud, market manipulation, and blackmail. Robert Davies, in exchange for his cooperation with the authorities, had received a suspended sentence and started a new life at a smaller firm, where he was slowly rebuilding his reputation. Albright Holdings not only survived the scandal, it thrived under the renewed leadership of Patrick, who had learned that true strength comes from honesty, not manipulation. And Anna Carter Albright became much more than the CEO's wife. She became the director of human resources at the company, implementing policies that ensured that no employee would ever be treated as invisible again. On the morning of their first wedding anniversary, Patrick woke up early and found Anna in the kitchen of their new home, making coffee as she did every morning. Not out of obligation, but out of love. "Good morning, Mrs. Albright," he said, kissing the back of her neck. "Good morning, Mr. Albright," she replied, turning into his arms. "Ready for another day of scandalizing New York high society?" Patrick laughed, pulling her closer. "Ready for another day of proving that true love is worth more than any social approval." And as they kissed in the kitchen of their simple but cozy home, they both knew that they had found something that no money could buy and no scandal could destroy. A love built on truth, respect, and the courage to choose each other, always. The world had tried to tear them apart, but they had proven that when two people truly love each other and fight together for the truth, no obstacle is too great to overcome.